What's up, guys? I'm glad you're here. My name is Drake, and you're listening to the Double Click Podcast by Holy Hill Media. Episode 40 of the Double Click Podcast. This episode is with Dustin Schlachter. Dustin's got over 25 years experience in the trenchless technologies industry. Think horizontal drilling. After that, I'm going to let him explain in the podcast you'll hear in a moment so I don't make a fool of myself. Know this. Dustin knows his stuff, and he's taken multiple businesses from nothing to something. He knows scale, and we crack that conversation open. We talk about how do you know when you're ready to scale as a company, which path to take, whether that's growing internally or acquiring a business or starting a new business, how to prepare your team for scale, and even a look under the hood of a serial entrepreneur and what that means operationally on a day-to-day basis. Lots of powerful information here, both spiritually and practically. I know you guys are going to learn something. I know you're going to be encouraged. Hope you guys enjoy this. Episode 40, Dustin Schlachter. Guys, welcome to the Double Click Podcast. This is episode number 40, and I'm here with Dustin Schlachter, and we are going to have an awesome conversation about his businesses today, a little bit about where he finds his identity in his business and some of the things that he's had to overcome in order to reach the scale in which he has reached. And so super excited to have you, man. Known each other now for going on about 2 years, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
2 years. We originally met through the Millionaire Mindset networking group that did Brent Signs bring that to you? How'd that even get started?
Yeah, Brent, Brad, good friend, and brother Brent, he said, hey, my brother's got a group he'd like to get started. You might fit the mold. And there was, I think, 5 or 6 of us that got together here at the office one evening just to kick around some ideas, kind of put a template together and said, let's launch it and see what happens.
Man. And so then it got up to how many altogether?
We've been going on now for about a couple years. And I think you came to one of the early ones, and it varies between 10 and 12 people per month that show up.
Yeah. It's pretty cool though, because there's a different range of people that are there, business owners. I mean, there was cats in high school there, and then there was people who were retired with done, seen it all, checked every box. It's like there's a huge spectrum of people that show up.
That's the cool part about that group is, and I've not been part of that type of group where you're allowing the young guys that know nothing, they're still in high school, but they've got a vision for their life that they want to be an entrepreneur. Yeah. And then you got guys that are inventors and wide business people that are on the top end of the scale, bringing their knowledge in. And then when it comes together, it's really an eventful evening, and we never really know where the conversation is going to go, except it ends up positive somewhere, because you always take something away that you've learned either from a young guy or an old guy. So yeah, it's a great mix.
I completely agree with that, man. A lot of good conversation there. I think people just good people in that group. So naturally good conversations going to come about it. Always super valuable. So, but enough about the Millionaire Mindset group, man. Let's talk about you, brother. If you could tell us just a little bit about what you do, the businesses that you own, and then in layman's terms, just give us a brief about each of those businesses and how they might work together.
Yeah. Everything that we do is in the trenchless technology space. Right. So since the beginning, always been an entrepreneur. Started selling candy out of my locker in the 4th grade, went into lawn care around 12, pedaling my bike across town, first employee at 15. And then out of high school, I couldn't afford to go to college and had an opportunity to join businesses, forces with my dad in a trenchless technology directional drilling business. So we install water and sewer line, cable, everything underground in that space through directional drilling. Started that in 1999. Branched off in 2007 for a coatings company that fit into that trenchless rehabilitation, spray applied coatings for everything infrastructure related. Everything in the ground has generally been there since the Great Depression. So it's our job to go in and fix it. And that was Advanced Rehabilitation Technology, other known as ART. And then transformed into supplying our own chemistry. So in 2017, 18, we started a company called OBIC that is a chemical distribution company that provides polyureas and polyurethanes to the country and now to some international applicators also that are in our network.
Wow. Okay. So and before we got started, you had mentioned it's like every 5 to 7 years you start a new thing. And you might have one intent for it, but eventually it just ends up being another hat you wear, right?
Yep.
When you're thinking of these businesses like OBIC, ART, and that's kind of, let's just say, the bread and butter for right now. When you're starting new businesses, like for example, OBIC, OBIC, is that a direct response to cost efficiency for ART, or is it just like, I see an opportunity in the industry because we're there? Like, what is the initial triggering thought to get you to even, consider starting another one?
Well, a lot of it is, does it fit in congruence with what we're already doing? So everything we do is in this trenchless technology space. So directional drilling, pipe bursting, rehabilitation, everything underground infrastructure wise is under one roof. And then when we started the OBIC side of it, it was out of necessity to find a coding system that we could stand behind and be happy with, that we needed good quality controls with. We needed different product lines than what we were using in the past. And it opened up an opportunity because it fit into what we were already doing. So we were already in the coatings business, and we started up our own manufacturing out of a necessity to have more options that we could bring to our municipal contacts and customers.
Okay. That's interesting. So to zoom out for a second, if I'm looking at this from layman's terms, using some dummy language, essentially, ART is working on like wastewater systems, which is all underground, right? And then there's going to be like I would imagine that because you guys said there's a lot of these are just they've been around since like the Great Depression. So I would imagine that you're replacing them, you're maintaining them, maybe installing completely new ones. And then OBIC is a company that essentially ART would need, whether you owned it or not, for the chemical sealing of those tunnel systems. Is that correct?
That's correct. So we're working in the vertical structures, everything at the treatment plant, water plants, anything concrete or steel has a shelf life.
Okay.
And OBIC is the polyurea chemicals that we would install through Advanced Rehabilitation.
Gotcha.
The other side of it is, because we were a leader in that space, we developed OBIC from a contractor's mindset. We're manufacturer distribution, but for the contractor, by the contractor. So we think differently because it's coming from the contractor mindset to deliver products that are user-friendly, high quality, where it's different than I'm a manufacturer and I only think like manufacturing.
Wow. So you created OBIC with the intentionality in the foundation of the company of who you were going to sell to, who you're going to work with anyway.
Absolutely.
So that separates you off the rip versus, like you said, structured as a manufacturer. So interesting. So just one more quick question, just to clarify, so people know what you do and what these businesses are. Who exactly do you serve? Because as far as I'm concerned, this could cross commercial, residential, government, everything in between, right?
Yeah. For the most part, we're looking for the municipal contractors, or we're working for municipal contractors or municipal customers. So we work as subcontractors to other larger GCs that are working in municipal spaces. Mostly we're working in the 90% of our world, or our work is coming out of the municipal space.
Okay.
We'll do about 10% industrial. Very little of it is intertwined in the private sector as far as homeowners and residential.
Gotcha. Okay. That makes sense. Understood. So I think that just gives everybody a good idea from business to product service to consumer. So let me zoom in a little bit on you personally, man. Tell us a little bit about your family dynamic. And then once we kind of get that, we'll kind of dive back into business. We'll kind of weave in and out. So for now, tell us a little bit about the family dynamic that you got, man.
Sure. So got married in 2009 to my wife, Melissa. Got 3 kids, 12, 10, and 6. Bryn, Blake, and Bodie. So 1 daughter, 2 boys. It's a wild time. We're in the grinder of life right now with the family, the busyness of the schedules and everything that we've got going on between school, sports, travel for business, other business related things that we're doing. And so it keeps our family hopping. We live in Bryan, Ohio. That's where I was born and raised. My wife is from Eden, and never branched very far out, but found that we love the area and enjoy being here. So what about the kids? The kids, they're awesome, but they're all starkly different. And so they've all came from the same parents, but man, oh man, do they have different personalities. And we try to balance that to the best of our ability. My wife does way better at that than I do.
Who gives you the most trouble?
The youngest, for sure.
Youngest. Does he act like you?
No, we've lost total control. It's we hope for the best for him. We've tried.
He tells you when you need to be home. He tells you when it's time for dinner.
He's witty. He's way smarter and wittier than I was at 6. And some of the things that he says, it doesn't harm anybody. And it's really hard not to laugh when you know you shouldn't laugh at a 6-year-old. But I am that dad that I'm laughing because it's just funny. And so he breeds on that then. And so it's he keeps us on our toes for sure.
That's awesome, man. Well, they keep you young. That's what they say. We don't have any kids yet, but I've heard they keep you young, man. That or make you old real quick. It's going to be one of the two.
Both. But you got to stay in decent shape because, you know, as you get older, you got to make sure that you can keep up with them too. So,
well, you're always running, man. I'm always seeing on your Instagram story miles and miles, 8, 10 miles. I'm like, what is this guy doing? And what times do you wake up to do this? And it's always super early. Tell me, let's just go there for a quick second. Why do you run so much? And like, what is your routine?
So why run? I wrote down on my vision board that I wanted to do a mile for every year of my life this year. So at 43, before my birthday, I wanted to be able to run 43 miles. I'm not a runner. Honestly, I don't enjoy it. But because I wrote it down, it's in black and white. It's got to get accomplished. So went to a friend of mine here in town at the church, Pastor Mike, just wanted some tips and tricks. Tell me how you've done these ultra marathons before. I'm going to go do 43 miles. And he said, well, that's dumb. There's no 43-mile race. I said, I'm not racing. I'm not a racer. And he said, but you got to do a 50-mile ultra. And so he talked me into it. And so that ended up being the goal for the year. I wanted to complete a 50-mile ultra. And it took a lot of preparation, a lot of focus. So generally every morning I was up at 4:30 in the morning, get the morning routine done, and then go pound some pavement for a few miles before work, and then long run Saturdays and Sundays. And then we accomplished it just a few weeks ago.
I saw that on Facebook, man. Congrats.
It was awesome. It was way harder than I expected it to be.
Yeah.
I thought I was in good shape. I thought I had trained well. And I think there was a couple weeks in there I was trying to quit because I think when things get personally hard, it's easy to find reasons to quit. I had a leg issue and I thought, oh, I almost had convinced myself that I needed to go to the hospital and get an x-ray because I had a bone spur, a fracture or something. I could have used those couple weeks in training, but got through it. And afterwards, super pleased with the accomplishment, but much, much harder than I expected it to be through the training process.
Wow. 50 miles. So that was all, you did that essentially one race?
12 and 3/4 hours. Yeah.
Jeez. So, oh, God have mercy. Were you cramping? Like, okay, we don't have to go far into it, but like, when did you die and then have to revive yourself? I guess is my question.
Yeah.
Because there's no way.
this is the mental piece of it, right? So you have to give yourself some pep talks when you're out there. And early in the morning, I get up at 3:30 that morning. Brad Signs picked me up, drove me over, dropped me off. It's 6 a.m. We've got our headlamps on, and we take off running into the woods. And it is way hillier than I expected it to be.
Mm.
I was right on pace where I wanted my first lap to be. I wanted to be done in 25 miles in 5 hours. On the start of the second lap, felt really pretty good. Got to about mile 32, and things started to fall apart. And so my left knee outside was starting to give me some fits. And by mile 37, I had to figure out, are you a quitter or are you a winner?
Man, you are. Yeah, come on.
And so I had to figure out what I was going to do. Was I going to quit and give up, or was I going to finish?
Hmm.
And that got really tough. So I'm out there in the woods. You're kind of by yourself at this point. The whole pack has spread out. You got these just amazing people that they're finishing their 75 mile loop, and I'm still finishing 50. These guys are just trucking, great shape. And I'm like, holy cow. But I'm out there in the woods just kind of giving myself the business, yelling at myself, and said some unrighteous things to myself, but got through that mental block that I was ready just to throw in the towel and quit. And so the last 10 miles were pretty brutal. And so I was coming into the aid station at 10 to go, and the family was there. Kind of broke down a little bit, got a little emotional, and it gave me some power, right?
Yeah.
Ready to go again. I'm going to finish this.
Yeah.
And then the next 4 miles to that next aid station, 5 miles to that next aid station, I had to figure out if I was going to finish or not. That's really where it got tough. The last 9 miles, I had to back down a couple hills, walk backwards because my knee wouldn't bend anymore.
Oh my God.
And so at the last aid station, I found some Advil from one of the aid station lady workers. And I knew there was a hill coming. I didn't remember how far it was away. And unfortunately, the Advil hadn't kicked in yet. It was like 30 feet. And the big drop came. I said, oh my gosh, I'm going to roll down to the bottom of this thing. So to finish the story quick, I got to the last mile. You come out on the road, and about a half a mile across the lake, you can see the tent in the finish line, but you still got to go around the lake, make another climb, and descend down into it. So my son calls me on his little watch phone. Dad, is that you out on the road? I said, yeah, it's me. And he said, I'm coming. So he takes off running around the brim of the lake. He goes, come on, give me a hug, Dad.
He came with, oh my God, you can't give up then, man.
Yeah. And he's like,
that's awesome.
Dad, you okay? And I said, actually, no, I'm not. I'm not doing well right now, buddy. But it's a powerful moment, right? It's one of those moments of time where you get a chance to tell somebody the truth. No, I'm not doing good.
Yeah.
So I got to climb this hill, and I got to descend back down in. He's like, let's go. Let's go. You got this, man. So
amazing, man.
Got to finish. It was good. I enjoyed it. I'm not a runner, though. I hung up my running shoes after that.
Well, I would say, man, if anybody's earned it, it'd be you, brother. 50's insanity. My project manager just got promoted to director of ops, is trying to encourage me to do a half marathon, just to do it. I think it's like 13 miles or something like that. Yeah. And so that's nothing for you though, bro. That's nothing for you at this point.
You should try it. It's good. You'll enjoy it. Afterwards, when it's done, you'll say, hey, you start to get into, it's divisions. You start to, it's separators, right? Mm-hmm. The people that are sitting on the couch are the ones judging you, not the people out there with the running shoes on next to you.
That's good.
And so it doesn't matter how fast you go. It's, hey, I went 50 miles in one day.
Yeah.
There's a very limited number of people that have accomplished that in the world.
100%, man. Which this is the kind of stuff that I want to crack open and see what's under the hood, man. Right here, the things that make the things that separate people, and then ultimately the successful and the unsuccessful.
Mm-hmm.
They're all correlated back down to characteristics, identity, personality types, commitments, habits, all the above. And what I hear you saying is something that I've really been latching onto in the last year and a half. The more I talk to successful individuals like yourself, friends that have built and sold multiple businesses, multimillionaires, 9 figures, doing really well. Every time I talk to these guys, they're constantly just saying, listen, man, like there's the difference between me and the next guy isn't that I'm that smart. It's not that I was given anything to start. It was just that I didn't give up. It's just that I'm willing to do the things that nobody else is willing to do. And I think when you look at it like that, it's so interesting to me because that option for success is truly on everyone's desk.
Mm-hmm.
And the only separating factor is then comes down to a choice or consistent choices daily, right?
Yep.
So you said something to me earlier I had to write down. You wrote it down, so it had to happen. Now, that's not true. That's actually not true, but that's how you see it, right?
Yep.
What to lean into that a little bit, and then I'm gonna weave that back into the business conversation. Why, for you, do you feel like when you write something down, it has to happen? Because I know a lot of people, brother, with a lot of notebooks with nothing to show for it. You feel me?
Yeah.
They write it down, but they don't feel the conviction they have to do it. What is that? How was that cultivated in you? Is that something that somebody taught you, family member did? Is that just something that you're not going to die on that hill? Like, I'm going to do what I say I'm going to do. Where'd that come from?
I think one of the things when you write your vision for yourself, the first person that you're cheating on or lying to is yourself.
Yeah.
And so I believe everybody should write a vision board for their life. I think they should have some personal goals, some financial goals, some faith, some fitness, life goals for your family, whatever time zone you're at in your life. I think people should have a vision where you're going, right? With no vision, the people will perish, right?
Right.
These are terminologies that are taught to us in the Bible, and that's paraphrasing, of course, and I probably misquoted the scripture.
You got it right. You got it right. Without vision, the people perish. That's right.
And so it's my vision for who I want to become. And if I write it down, it's in black and white. I can say, I have a goal to you today. And if I just verbalize it to you, there's no conviction. There's no commitment. There's no effort because I didn't pick up the pen or pencil and write it on a piece of paper and put it on my noteboard so that I have to see it. And when you see it and you've committed to it. So when you see it, then every day or every other day, you know it's there as I've got to accomplish this. And without that visual, I find that if I don't plan my year plans it for me and I get nothing accomplished.
Come on, say that again.
It's just when you look at a calendar, 365 days, if you plan nothing, you're going to accomplish that. But if I write it down, I've got a vision. I know what I got to do. It gives me a timeline and space. And it's just like in business. You can't build a business without a business plan. How do you go through life without a life plan? And I didn't really figure this out until I was a little bit older. I wasn't really taught these things. And going back to the millionaire mindset group that we're in, right? We're teaching these young kids about big vision, big-minded, opportunistic, visionary, those type of things that most people aren't talking about in high school and college. So I really didn't learn this until later in life, in the last 10, 15 years, that really became important to have a vision of where you're going.
That's good. You know, it's interesting to me, man, when you say to write something down and put it somewhere, you visibly have to choose whether or not you're going to ignore that. Whereas if you just say it, it's easy to ignore what you said. That's gone, right? Unless you see that person, then you're like, I'm ducking from them in the grocery store because they're going to hold me accountable to what I said, right? But if you write it down and put it on your vision board, like I have that for myself right here in my whiteboard, right? I have to I have to sit down every day and see that and then ask myself, am I going to be the man who does what he says or not? But I'm faced with the choice every day, though, because it's in front of me. And then that's up to me ultimately.
Yeah, I've got some scripture on my board here, just sticky notes on my wall that I look at every day. I've got some daily reminders on here of some key things. Maybe you saw me in the beginning before we started. I was erasing some stuff because I got bad handwriting. So I was erasing stuff off the board because it's chicken scratch. But I'll write it back up there as soon as this is over because it's my reminder of I've got a goal in mind. I'm going to accomplish it. And then it's accountability too, because when people come in my office, they go, what's that mean? And I tell them the story. And it's a reminder, it's conviction, it's accountability. And then you start to build. It's just like completing that race. Yeah. I had told so many people I was going to go do this ultra. I would have been embarrassed to not complete it and not been able to tell people, yeah, I did it. Or they could see that I accomplished it, because when you are so committed to it, you're excited to tell people about it. And it's not bragging, it's accountability.
Yeah. 100%.
The more people I tell, the more accountable I became.
Yeah, I love that, man. I love that. What people can learn something from writing something down and putting it somewhere where they're reminded of that, right? But then they can still have this sense of, well, I'm just not going to look up, right? Or they're okay every day saying, I'm not the person I want to be. They just don't say it out loud. They make excuses in their mind. Well, it's not the right time. I don't have enough money to start the business. I don't need to do this, or we had a down year, so we're not going to reinvest. Whatever the case might be, there's always going to be an excuse, right? But I think that the thing that is interesting about what you're saying is, like, you make choices that everybody has, but you just make a different choice. You just make the choice. And so what I've realized, man, and I want to get your thoughts on this, I don't believe people ever actually change or commit deeply to their choices unless the opposition is more uncomfortable, unless not doing it is too painful. So for example, like, I'd rather fail than regret, right? In a very simplistic and elementary perspective, right? I'd rather fail than regret. So in order to start something, in order to double down, to take it to the next level, your business is to the next level, you know what you need to do, or you know who you need to ask for that specific thing you need to do. But the hesitation comes when not doing it is not as painful. I think we're motivated by pain more than we are success. I really believe that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's why it's important to hang around people that are successful, because you are the low standard now, and that makes you uncomfortable, which forces you up, right? Yeah. But I guess, what's your take on that, man? Like, specifically with business, because, and we're gonna get into it, but you've hit roadblocks too, man. You've slid back down the hill before. Mm-hmm. You've fallen on your face, and in those times, obviously, it's always everybody's like, you'll be grateful for this one day, and you're like, yeah, screw off. And then one day you actually are. You're like, yeah, that made me tough.
Yeah.
But when you make the decision for something bigger, better, greater, there's sacrifice that needs to happen, whether that's training for the race or doing whatever you're going to write on that board after this call. Mm-hmm. What is that motivating factor for you that is more compelling than the discomfort that it takes to get to that place? And it might change per thing, but generally speaking.
What's the motivating factor? There's a couple things, honestly. One of the things that I think in my world, my risk barometer is broken. So I don't understand that as well as other people. I was a decent kid in school. I got decent grades, but I wasn't fantastic at school. And so I think I'm not smart enough to be scared sometimes, where some people can go through analysis paralysis. And so I think part of it is not having a risk factor that holds us back. When I was just out of high school, I remember having to go, you got to go to the mall to buy books, right? And this is almost 25, 26 years ago. So you had to go to the mall and buy books.
You guys didn't have Amazon back then?
No Amazon. So I had got the Rich Dad, Poor Dad book, and it was kind of a tipping point to understand the difference between the way I was growing up and the way I wanted to be. And then I started to dive into some of that type of content where it was, you had to physically read a lot of books to get leadership principles and philosophies and business things. And I really didn't have an example of what all of this could look like back then, because I didn't know business people. And so I was kind of winging it for the most part. And then what is the motivation now is, what's the dash mean? We are 2 dates, right? You have a beginning date and an end date, and you're a dash in between. And what does that dash stand for? What's your legacy going to be? And what does that piece of your life look like? The greatest thing that we're going to have is 2 generations to remember us.
Yeah,
Most people aren't going to remember who you are.
Yeah. Wow.
So what's my legacy going to be? Was Dustin just an average Joe? That's fine. And I'm not saying that's a bad place to be, but it just doesn't fit my drive and vision.
Yeah.
So legacy is a big piece of it. Is what's the family tree going to look like when I'm done?
That's good.
And so that's my motivation.
That's good, man. And it sounds like at some point in time you chose that. When how old were you when you bought Rich Dad Poor Dad from the library in the mall?
I was probably 18, right out of high school,
18,
maybe even in high school still. Ended up buying the whole series. So the E Quadrant, you got there's like a 5-book series. I just found it the other day. I still got it. I'm a book.
I recommend anybody still read those though. Those are dang good books. Yeah. We'll come back to that because you're gonna make my mind go into these books now. But you bought that at 18 years old, which means there was some desire you were seeking. There was some thirst you were seeking to quench there. It must have been a result of not being satisfied with either the way your life was that was given to you, or how the home you're in, what you could afford as a kid, whatever the case might be.
100%.
Okay, that's what it was. Okay,
it was. We grew up not knowing this, but we were kind of poor kids growing up. We didn't realize it at the time. Nobody talked about it. You didn't know it. But looking back, we didn't make trips to the mall very often. We weren't getting all of the designer name brand stuff. And so I knew early on, if I was going to do it, I was going to have to work for it. I was going to have to go get it myself. And nobody told me that. It was just the young kid interpretation of life, I guess. It wasn't a bad thing. It's just how we grew up. And so that's why I started business. I had my first employee when I was 15 mowing yards. He was making great money. He was making $10 an hour cash in 1995, right? He was making great money.
That's crazy. Minimum wage in Ohio is like $10 an hour. That's crazy.
And I was, hey, don't tell the government. I wasn't paying taxes though.
Hey, look, man, I know what cash does too, brother. I know what cash does too.
Yeah.
Hey, the cool thing about this though, man, is it kind of comes back to the original point where it's like discomfort causes change.
Correct.
Discomfort causes change, but so many people get the book and then that scratches the itch. They go back to the comfortable ways of being broke and not being happy, but they're comfortable. The curse of the modern day society is that things are so good for us that they can be broken and we can still be comfortable in them. Back in the day, what's that?
That's scary, actually.
Yeah, but it's true. I mean, I'm just going to be honest. Like, it's true. I see it. I see it in society, my friends, some of my family, peers. Like, I see it all over the place. It's like, we just have it so good that if it's broken, we can still be comfortable in it and then not have to change. And that's what's crippling society today. And the interesting thing about that is I do see people make an attempt, like they take the right steps, but it stops somewhere because they're satisfied with trying. I have this conversation with my little brothers all the time, man. And it's like, you know, and not to put any of them on blast, but they'll say like, I tried. I'm like, do you think that anybody gives a shit that you tried, brother? Like, it's did you do or did you not do? It's black and white. The same conversation that I have all the time with my brothers. It's like men don't consider what's hard or what's easy. They simply consider what's necessary, which means I don't care how difficult it is. If I have to do it, it must be done. The more I contemplate how difficult it is, the more resistance I'm up against. I'd rather just do it and get over it. I know it's hard, but it's necessary. Yeah. So don't pull out the measuring tape and ask, put the tissues away, buddy. You know what I'm saying? And so I think that's where we're at in this society. And so it's like, the reason why I guess I'm staying so long on this thing, you bought the book and it didn't stop there.
Yeah.
Right. So you read the book. Obviously, it's Rich Dad Poor Dad it's probably, in my opinion, the best. I think everybody should read it, but between like the ages of like, I don't know. You got it? You got it still?
I don't have that here, but I have the second greatest book. It's out in my truck right now.
What's the second greatest book?
Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill.
Oh my. I've got it somewhere around here.
Yeah.
I've got it somewhere around here. This book is, again, I think those two books, I think the E-Myth and Cash Flow Quadrants should be something that everybody reads before they enter a career when they're like 16, 17, 18. Absolutely. Because I wish I would have before I got to college and got college loans. Was silly. Besides the point, it's not about me. The fact of the matter is, though, these things activate change in the right hearts. There's a parable talking about the word, about the parable of the soil, right? Some some seeds are planted and they essentially they don't even take root. Some are gathered, kicked away essentially because they can't take root. Some take root. The parable. The thing about it is like some people read these books and something takes root in them, and there's another action that they take because of it. Some people read it and they're like, well, I tried. Let's see what opportunities come my way. What was it that kept you moving even though you read the book? I'm taking you back to 18 years old, brother. You got to draw back, man. Some alpha brain in here.
What kept me going? I couldn't afford to go to college.
Oh, you had no choice.
That wasn't for me. So I wasn't smart enough to get a scholarship. I thought I'd go play football then, and I wasn't good enough to go play D2. I wasn't big enough, fast enough, strong enough. And so I wasn't getting a scholarship to go to college. Yep. And so I ended up at Northwest State. And I realized that I'm just not good at school. I can get done. I can learn it enough to pass the test, and I got good grades, but I'm not retaining any of it. And so when we started the directional drilling business up,
what were you going to school for at Northwest really quick? Sorry.
Business management.
Okay.
And I've probably forgotten most of it that I learned, honestly. Because I think that college is for some people and colleges aren't for others. There is ways to learn, and I'm learning this now, is my way of learning was honing a craft of reading books that became interesting to me. And so that took me down the rabbit hole of I've got to read and learn the content from these books because this is interesting to me. Whereas, and I've always been attracted to entrepreneurs and business people. And as I got older, it was easier once we were in business to get to those business people that I could watch. And I would watch them from afar and see how they were handling their business, see how they're handling conversations, and became just a visual sponge of things positively or negatively that other people were doing. And then I could formulate my own thesis about how I wanted business to be ran.
Yeah.
By watching how they built and handled tough conversations and business issues. And one of the books that I had read was Love the Guy or Hate Him. I'm a fan. I've been a fan since I read his book where Kiyosaki and Trump wrote a book together.
Oh, okay.
It talked in there about business failures. And so in business, in life, we have failures. We all have setbacks. Mm-hmm. The defining moment in a person's life is what you choose to do in that failure.
Right.
So what's your title going to be? What's that look like after the fact? And so we've had business failures. You kind of don't make it till you've lost a few. And so you lose a couple rounds, you don't get better winning, you get better losing.
Yep.
And so we went through a lot of tough times until we figured it out, but we never gave up. And I guess the thing that keeps coming to my mind is grit and fortitude. You just got to have the grit to keep going.
How do you define grit?
How do you define grit? It's really the internal clock, the internal motor that just never stops.
Okay.
You got to grind through the tough times and remember, you don't lift when it's good. You keep the gas down when it's good and bad.
That's good.
In the tough times, create stronger men.
Goodness gracious, man. We could take that back to society right now and talk about that whole quote. You know what I'm talking about?
Absolutely.
We'll bring it back in a little bit, man. I want to keep talking about you. So what I've got is Rich Dad, Poor Dad coming as a result of not being satisfied with, the life that you've seen so far. You wanted something new, something bigger, something better. Maybe you didn't exactly know what that looked like, but you knew that the next step was to figure out how to create some freedom and opportunity with your ability in business. So that kind of starts the entrepreneurship journey. Now we fast forward to today, and obviously owning multiple successful businesses. You do now have a lot of entrepreneur friends, so it's a different world now. You're not just reading Rich Dad Poor Dad, although it's always a great book to revisit.
Yeah.
You're in a completely different place now, man. And it's funny because people like to play business success as this complicated formula, and everybody's got this secret sauce, silver bullet, and that's what everybody's selling on social media now, right? But the truth of the matter is like the only consistent factor that you can link from, the beginning to end of somebody's successful career is truly just commitment, persistence, and curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's that simple. Like,
absolutely.
If we boiled it down, you know what I'm saying? And so would you say that where you're at now, looking back, and then I want to get into the present day, Dustin, just where you're at with business, getting to this point, and also just the beginning of these businesses too, just I guess considering the last decade, more or less, when you think back to getting started, expansion, failures, catching up, expansion, growth, and then leading all the way to present day, what do you feel like, if you had to say, what are the things that I guess kept you moving around those times? Like, did you have the right support system? Do you have the friends you can call? Or was it just like, I got to figure this out. I'm worried that I got kids, so I just have no other choice. I got to put food on the table. Like, what was it, I guess, that got you through to this point? Because no matter what business you're in, what industry you're in, if you're in business any longer than a year, you're going to face some sort of difficulties, right? The honeymoon phase will fade hard.
That's
so what kept you going? And I guess, what did you use to crawl? What levers did you pull on to crawl when it got hard, when it was uphill?
So for the first, say, 7-8 years, I didn't really think about it, really. I was too young, too naive to
How old were
understand.
you at that time?
So it would have been like 19 to 25, 26, 27. I always used to tell everybody, when I'm 30, I'm going to know something, because in construction back then, if you weren't 30, you were just a kid.
Green, yeah.
And so, and a couple people have reminded me that I used to say that all the time since then. But I didn't feel like I was getting any respect because I was a kid. And so, and I think that was one of those internal, just like trying to quit during the race, right? It was my excuse at that time. So one of the times when business got tough is really when I figured out what I was missing, and that was faith. And so I can tell you exactly where I was at. The conversation I had with my fiance at the time, Melissa, that we were engaged to get married. I can tell you the exact moment where I was sitting. I don't remember what I was wearing anymore, but we were done. We were cooked. The key collector was coming in and he was going to shut us down.
Mm.
And it went for about a month of just tossing.
Wait, business or your relationship?
Business. Sorry,
Oh,
business.
okay. I was like, hey,
No,
let's get this right, man, before I get a call. You know what I mean?
business was failing.
Okay.
And at the end of that conversation, she said, that's okay. She's a nurse. She said, and she didn't mean this, but the man inside of me heard her say, that's okay. We'll be fine. Because I just got done telling her, we're going to lose the house. We're losing the apartments, the business. Everything is going to be on the chopping block when the key collector comes in. She said, it's all right. I got a good job. That's what she said.
What did you hear?
What I heard was, you can't even afford to take care of a family.
Oh.
So, right? Men internalize things differently. What she meant was, we'll be fine. I got this.
Yeah.
And so sleepless nights build up time after time. I'm going through like 30 days of tossing and turning. And finally, I just said, I'm laying in bed one night, God, if you're real, I don't know what I'm doing here. I need some help. Slept like a baby. And things started to work. Things started to work out. We started to, I got re-engaged in the business, and we figured out where our shortfalls were. The bank started working with us. Everything started to click again.
How old were you around this time?
27, 28.
Okay.
And so I was a believer.
Sure.
I got baptized. I was a believer, right? Check the box. I'm good. That's all I needed. And
So
but I wasn't a follower. I wasn't a follower.
Come on.
I was probably not even attending church 2-3 times a year at that point. And in my world, I believed I was good enough. I didn't need any more until I needed more. And I didn't have business people to reach out to. I didn't have a network of people to ask questions about, hey, when your business fails, what do you do? I had to lean on faith that we were going to be okay. And I didn't know what that meant. And I still don't some days. But I do believe now that we operate differently, because I had to get rid of some of the pride and arrogance that I was carrying that had got us to that point, to be in the position now to be able to bless a lot of people through the business success. And so we had to go through those tough times. We had to go through those failures, one, to get my attention and open my eyes to what really mattered. And that's where I come back to the dash, right? The dash is, what's my life and faith look like?
Yeah.
What does my life look like as a believer versus a non-believer? And from that point forward, that was a turning point. And it's not always been easy since then. Business isn't easy. Life is not easy. Being faithful is not easy. But you wake up every day, you put your pants on one leg at a time, tighten your boots up, and you go to work.
Get it done. I love this, man.
Whatever it is.
Right. Well, yeah, I think that's transferable, right? You don't have to own a business to say that's true, right? Like I agree. And what is it? First, before I guess ask that question, your legacy matters to you. We just talked about this the other day on the phone. How many people do you employ right now? And then talk just briefly about your goal and a little bit about your telling me, like, I want to employ this many people. I love it, man. I love your heart behind it. I think it's awesome. Yeah. So I want to make sure we get that in. So before we get too far into it, we forget to talk about it. Tell me about that. Let's talk about it.
So I knew at some point in time, 100 was always in my mind. And so just now we crested the 100 employee mark. So those are good paying construction jobs. majority of the team is making six figures.
Wow.
And some of them are way younger than you are. And it's awesome. I love it. I love the fact that we have good paying jobs for all these people. Now we have high expectations and they travel a lot and there's trade-offs, but so we just crossed the 100 mark this year. So big vision. I think we can double that in the next 4 years. And the goal that I think is in my mind, not I think, I know where we're headed is 300. And that would be about $100 million company. 100 million is something that people can digest because business people think about the revenue side. I think about how many employees that is. That's going to be at least 300 employees. 300 employees, 2.5 kids, wife, spouse, something like that. You know, we're going to be starting to take care of thousands of people at that point. We're putting kids in college and giving them opportunities at a good future. And so what I see from this adventure is we get to 300 employees, we're starting to take care of thousands. And I think that's kind of what we're called to do.
I love that. That's your legacy. And that's that thing that, again, I had to bring that back up. Just I thought that was awesome. And I know it's probably one of those things to where, and maybe I'm wrong, but you wake up one day and you're like, holy crap, we crossed the 100 employee mark. And it's like, oh, wait, this is pretty amazing. What else can we do? Is that kind of how essentially that vision birthed?
Yeah. It got there pretty fast. I didn't think it was going to happen this year. And so once we got there, the light flickers and you believe that, okay, what's the next goal? What's the next piece of the vision? Where are we going to take this to? So we could be happy. We could stop growing right here, but it's not revenue driven. It's people driven.
Wow.
How do we take care of people? That's our goal and our vision. Growing people is my life goal, and seeing them do well and prosper really is exciting to us. And so my hope is that we can continue to grow people that grow people, and we see this transition possibly for generations.
Yeah, I love it, man. I think we all have to be generationally minded. I don't think we're having those conversations quite enough as a society, especially as a body of believers. I think we do need to be talking about this from the concept of culture, legacy, and financial well-being generationally. But to get back to the question I wanted to ask earlier, there's this crazy collision that happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object. When an unstoppable force meets an immovable object, something crazy happens where pride, ego, and ambition hit a brick wall, and you end up smacking your face, sliding down like a cartoon on a window, right?
Yep.
And only then are you forced to surrender. This
Yes,
word
sir.
surrender, without a little maturity, that word surrender sounds like nails on a chalkboard. To me, now surrender sounds like peace. It sounds like oasis. It sounds like rest. It sounds like confidence. It sounds like growth. That transition for you, your unstoppable force meeting that immovable object, when you hit that, when that collision came to be, your wife was there first and foremost and said, whether you heard it differently or not, she was still there. She was like, I got you, baby. I got you. Yeah. So there's a bit of confidence there to allow you to take some risk, to at least say, my wife's got my back, right? She could have kicked you when you're down. That would have been shitty, but she could have, right? She didn't.
Yep.
She didn't. But on the flip side of that, it was like what you heard. I couldn't essentially provide for my family. Flipped a switch in you, and what was hard just became necessary. That was that process. That was that evolution for you. Afterwards, what were you looking at differently? Before you hit the wall, before you had to surrender and find God and surrender everything to him, have that come to Jesus moment that everybody, says, right? what things were you focusing on prior to the fall and then after the fall within your business?
It's probably people, honestly. Early on, I was too immature to figure out the importance of people and how much people matter. And so I wasn't super concerned with people. It was, how can we make money and be profitable and have a good life? Afterwards, I mean, we had 20 employees or 25 employees at the time. That's 100 lives we're impacting. I could have went and got a new job working for another construction company and been just fine. But what about the people? And so the switch happened to really open my eyes to what about the people and what are you doing to take care of them? So that's where the realization through surrendering, through faith and understanding became, it's important to remember people. And if I don't remember people and what they mean, then what good is all of this? And so that's where the life goal of how do we grow people came alive, essentially.
Wow. So that being humbled, for a lack of better terms,
Absolutely.
being humbled, right?
Yeah.
That is what took you from seeing yourself to seeing the people around you. And that is the ingredient that you believe changed the trajectory of your business, because afterwards you grew exponentially. And you believe that focus is what really made the difference. Taking care of your people, maybe checking on them more, spending more time with your leaders, making decisions for them versus maybe bottom line sacrifice a little bit. Is that what I'm hearing you say? Like the change, the growth happened because you started focusing on the people?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I was worried about how does this look, what does God think of all of these decisions we're making? It changed. It became a focus. And so then you start to think about the people differently. And when you're dealing with a key collector and you got 20 mouths that you're feeding and you can't make payroll, then it's embarrassing. It's humbling. It's terrifying. It is all of the things that are difficult. But without them, we're nothing, right? Without the people, we're nowhere near where we are. You can go faster together than you can go alone. And so when you go with people and you have their best interest in mind, they're going to help you get where you need to go faster together.
That's so good, man. It's funny. You said something a second ago that kind of caught my ear. You kind of pivoted from asking what God thought about the decisions you already made to starting to ask, but you stopped asking God for his opinion after you already made the decision and started asking him before you made the decisions.
And we've been blessed ever since.
Goodness gracious. Isn't it crazy? Because God wants to bless the path, but not the path you've already walked. He wants to bless the path ahead, because that's the one that requires faith. You know what I mean?
That's why I think they talk about the narrowness of the gate, right? Like you can look in the rearview mirror and see everything that you've done in the past, but that's the vision of the future is a narrow gate. And how narrow it is how big your vision is to some degree. Yeah, we want to stay on that path. We want to stay on his path, but you got to have a vision of where you're going. And my life verse, Proverbs 16:3, tell the Lord your path and he'll make it happen, right?
Yeah.
Tell him your plan and he'll make it prosper. And so we can do nothing and go nowhere and live life in neutral. Or we can have a vision. We can have a purpose. We can have a conversation with God and tell him, hey, this is where I'm going. Now he'll guide you along the way. He'll correct you if it's not the path that he wants you on, but he also is going to help you be successful.
Yeah.
Because you put it in action.
Yeah.
We got to be people of action.
Have to be, man. Have to be, man. I know we're getting close to your time. We got about 13 more minutes. Let's talk about some practical stuff, man. You communicated before. I don't know if it was when we were on the phone a couple weeks ago or when it was, but you've had some moments in business where beyond just that late 20s, where you had to make choices to course correct, or you had to fix something. I think business is kind of just constantly fixing something, really.
Right.
But when you were, what is Dustin's rescue kit for issues in business now? If you had to have a little bag with this person in it, this book in it, this ideology, this software, this system, this prayer, whatever, what would be your rescue kit that you're willing to say, if I have these things, I don't care what I'm going to hit in business, I can solve it with these things?
I think that's part of the really boils down to our core values of who we are. It's an acronym of being driven. And so my life is about being driven. And we've established words to fit on every one of those letters. And if one of my team members needs to know, how do we move forward? Does it fit within the core values? Is it showing dedication? Is it respect? Are you being integrity? Do you have a vision? Are you doing it with excellence? Are you being noble? And so that acronym of being driven, if they can answer how we would do business based on that core value, then they're probably going to get it pretty close. If there was a book that I took with me, three books, 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, John Maxwell.
Yep.
Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, and probably a fourth one in there, The Power of One More.
Ooh, I don't think I know that one.
Ed Milott's latest book, and it's about, we have the power as people to do more than we give ourselves credit to. And so are you going to do one more? We can stop. Nobody's going to push you to do more. But are you going to go one more lap? Are you going to go one more mile? Are you going to get up that 10 minutes earlier so you can accomplish what you set out for your goal for the day?
Yeah.
And so people stop short of what they can accomplish because their mind is weak. Unfortunately, I don't mean that to be mean. I've been there myself, but it's a weakness that people stop too early. They stop before they hit the goal because it got hard. And the little squiggly line of success that people don't want to transcend, they stop before the goal, and they stop before the success.
Just right.
You got to get through the hard stuff to find the gold.
That's so good, man. That's so good, because I think the reason people, it's the saying that I'm sure you've heard it, but they say Navy SEALs live by this ideology. When you feel like you're at your capacity, you're truly only at 40% of your capacity. And you can apply that to your physical exertion, mental capacity, emotional capacity, all these things, right? And I'm not saying that, so don't take, professional legal advice here, but that in and of itself just forces me to think, especially next to putting that next to what you just said. The reason why people stop is because their gauge of capacity is too associated with comfort.
Bingo.
So if my gauge in my arena and my litmus test, my barometer isn't measuring comfort, I can do a whole hell of a lot more, because nothing's really telling me to stop. The only thing that I'm looking at then is vision. So if I disassociate interest with from comfort, then the only thing is just vision then.
Right.
Just left with vision then. So I think that if somebody's listening now starting a business, in business, they have the friction. First thing that you should do is write, if you haven't done it yet, write your core values down now, because you can reference those when times are hard. Don't write those when times are hard, because you'll make them for you now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Make those for you for when times do get hard. Come back to that. Lean on wisdom. Disassociate with comfort, because comfort does not produce the fruit that you long for. And the next thing I've got to ask you, man, is when you hit these points in business where, I don't know, man, maybe there's too many months in a row in the red. I don't know what these are. It doesn't necessarily matter. When there's too many months in the red, or there's a competitor in town, we don't have the funds to catch up with marketing, or we don't have the manpower, or we keep losing people because nobody wants to work. Whatever the pain point truly is, the core values are kind of what you refer to get you through, you and your team through. Let's measure it up against this, because I'm willing to say if we fail, we failed doing it the way that we knew we should.
Mm-hmm.
After that, you've got this practical wisdom and ideology given to you through the books, 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Think and Grow Rich, and Power of One More. So you've got practical knowledge and essentially ideology that you can lean on. How important is it in your friend circle? Is this something you talk about in your friend circle? Do you talk to your buddies who are in business? Because it's hard, because like, maybe everybody owns a business, but I think everybody thinks they just group entrepreneurs together when they're not an entrepreneur. But you're not going to call me and ask me about anything about drilling pipelines for sewage connection systems. I don't know anything about that. You know what I'm saying? I might not call you for marketing. You know what I mean? It's just going to be the trade-off. Who do you call when shit hits the fan?
I'd like to say I got a big depth chart of it.
Okay.
And the one reason why I'm part of these groups, Millionaire Mindset, Mastermind groups, because one of the hardest things I find in business today is commonality amongst business people, that some business people have been there, done it. They're on cruise control.
Yeah.
Not everybody is as maybe I am with hammer down. We're launching, we're going for it. We launched, I committed a few weeks ago, and I told the team we're going to do it now over ever. It's now or never. And so we dropped the hammer a few weeks ago and launched. And so honestly, without the mastermind groups, the Millionaire Mindset, people like that are part of those groups, I don't have a core group of people that I reach out to daily, weekly, sometimes not even monthly, that become part of that circle. And I say that, it's kind of sad, honestly, because it's hard to have lots of business relationships when not everybody's willing to be open and honest, vulnerable about where they're at in business and life. And so it's kind of hard, honestly. Sometimes it feels like you're on the proverbial island. And if you ask any entrepreneur, they've been on the island. And sometimes in entrepreneurism, that's our life. We live on the island because we just think different than normal people. Not that it's right, wrong, or indifferent. It's not bad. It's not right. It's just different. And so it goes back to the risk factor. It's broken. And so it's hard to associate with people that have a barometer of risk, and they believe in risk. And when yours is broken and non-existent, I'm always asking people, what's your goal? Where are you going? What's next? Because that's always the mindset that I try to keep. And I want them to hold me accountable, but I want to hold them accountable too.
Yeah.
And so it's always about, hey, what's your vision? Where are you going? And not everybody's willing to have that conversation also. So that makes it tough sometimes also.
Yeah. I love it. I found that if you create the culture of it, the people will come, and then the wrong people will leave. And as long as you keep being you, you know what I'm saying?
Yep, 100%.
So I got 2 questions. I'm gonna sneak in before 4:30. I know you got a dip, man.
Hey, we got time.
Okay.
I'm not going to cut you off, so ask away.
All right, I appreciate you, man. I do appreciate you even making the time to do this, man. It's yeah, this, I know it's kind of like dead time in your day, and I know you're a busy guy. So I really appreciate everything you've shared so far, man. So speaking of being busy, I want to know, on a practical note, if you can just explain to me and everybody listening what your day-to-day looks like. And I know it's a mess of buttons and switches and proverbial, the cockpit, where there's a million different things where nobody really knows what's going on unless you're in the cockpit. So if there's anything that's, not necessarily proprietary or private, feel free to just tell me to screw off. But if you can break down what your typical, and maybe your day-to-day varies too much, give me your week to week, whatever is easiest for you to articulate.
So I call myself the chief visionary officer here. I don't have a lot of key tasks that I accomplish specifically for accounting or operations. I look at myself more as the coach. We have a lot of people that are really smart and doing what they do. So I get with operations. I make sure that the right people are in the right seat of the bus. One of the things that I've been really focused on here lately is making sure, because there are 3 medium-sized businesses wrapped into one. It's a large business. So, and maybe even they're small businesses. But peeled apart, it wouldn't be a tough business model to handle. But at 7 o'clock in the morning, I may put my S&S hat on. At 7:30, I might put my ART hat on. At 8 o'clock, I put my OBIC hat on. And sometimes I even struggle switching gears between the 3 companies, and I forget at 7 o'clock what I was supposed to do by the time I take my OBIC hat back off. And so right now, the goal is to get people into the right seat of the bus, that they can run operations, they can do the sales, the marketing, do the accounting functions. And then mine is at a 30,000 foot view. What's next? Where are we going? What's the vision of the company? Are we going to go acquire another company? Are we going to continue to build? And finding each business model is different a little bit. I mean, we're running everything integrated, but they all have their own personalities. So fostering each personality where it's at to see what that next level is for each of them, and how do we grow. Some of it's just organic growth, and we have to determine when to hire new crew members and build equipment. And others are, maybe we need to go acquire a company to bolt on a service, bolt on a product to what we're already doing.
Can you give me sorry, go ahead. I was just going to ask, whenever you're done, can you give me an example of when you say that's the right time to reinvest? But finish what you're saying first.
So the organic growth is a little bit easier because you just know you're plateaued. In order to grow, you've got to add equipment, add people. And so you start up the slope again, you hit max capacity, you plateau, you rise, you plateau. It's the standard in business. So trying to determine where you're at in that cycle is something that I do. Do we buy a company, or do we organically grow? That's the question right now. And what was your question?
That's exactly what I wanted to ask, actually. It was like, when the process specifically on a practical level, it's like you get to what is the alarm that sounds that says it's time to ask yourself that question? And then what are the factors that help you decide whether you buy a company or you just continue to grow internally? What's the alarm, and what are the filters?
Oh man, you make it sound so sophisticated. It's mostly,
It's just,
how does it feel?
Case. Okay.
It's the gut emotion attached to it. Now, I'm not saying emotion, like business is not emotional. It's logical.
Yeah.
It's dollars and cents. It's not emotional in the state of emotions.
But there's intuition still.
It's intuition and gut feeling.
Okay.
How do we know when to throttle up or throttle down? Is the team ready? You got to ask yourself, is the team that we have today ready for that next step? Or do I need to find, or do we need to promote somebody on the team to get us to that next step? And as if you're in a plateau and your business isn't growing, are you comfortable there? Is that good enough? Or do you want to take the next step? And if you say, yes, I need to take the next step, you got to peel the onion back to see what 1 or 2 steps you need to take to add people, equipment, to build opportunity. Now, do you start with opportunity or do you start with people and equipment? That's the $1 million question that makes or breaks a lot of companies. A lot of times we will cross-train people before we need them for that next step, before we get the equipment or the opportunity comes, because you could have all the opportunity in the world, but it's the same thing in your business. 16 marketing projects come in and you may not be able to facilitate all 16 at once.
Yeah.
But if you anticipate next year, I want 16 new opportunities that are this size or this capacity, then you start to build for the future. And that's where it rolls back to the vision. And so each piece of the puzzle, each individual business model is in different phases. And I think businesses have phases. There's the newborn. It's 1 to 500, 0 to 500,000, and 500 to 1 million, and 1 million to 3, 3 to 5, 5 to 10. It's categorically growing, and each business model has a different problem to solve along that growth strategy.
Yeah, that's good. It's interesting. I caught a few of these things. I just want to reiterate. So reinvesting, there's logic, there's projections, there's numbers and things that you can quantify, but sometimes it is just intuition, and the ability to switch back and forth between being pragmatic and intuitive is a superpower. Because I know a lot of people who compensate one or the other because they're either overthinking or they just haven't been there, done that before. And the hard thing is you can only learn that by screwing it up. Like, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Intuition is fueled by experience and provision.
Mm-hmm.
And so that helps your intuition be more accurate and also be louder in your head versus a muddied voice. But then as you go on, I love this little pro tip: cross-train prior to the transition, because that workload is going to get swollen during that transition, right? You're going to have an influx. You're scaling one way or another, whether that's acquisition or internally. Cross-training allows for nothing to fall between the cracks, right? Which is super helpful because we're in this transition, or we're actually in this phase right now where we're going up, and I know Q1 is going to be like it's going to be a lot. It's going to be busy, but cross training to me is one of those things that I've been thinking about, and you just helped me make the decision. Cross train so that nothing falls between the cracks. Capacity can open up during that transition. Doesn't have to stay that way forever, but until we get through.
And you eat a little bit of margin when you're doing cross training. So you got to be prepared for the cost of cross training, because you always want it to be a Singer sewing machine. You want it to run without missing a beat. Right. Cross training, you're going to eat margin out of that profitability, and you got to be okay with that too, because you've got to have enough profitability to be able to cross train.
Sure.
And knowing that for a season, I'm okay with reducing my net to increase opportunity. Then that increases net following down the road. But today you got to eat it, take it on the chin while you're preparing for that next step. Yeah,
that's good. That is really good, actually. I might need to call you separately to ask you about this stuff, man. This is good. I'm going to follow up really quick with another question. Your operations. So a lot of this, you've been taking the hat off and putting another hat on as you're, explaining this process. But a lot of this is intuition, but a lot of it too is just operational awareness, right? So then when it comes to operations for you, do you have are you the operational oversight for all the companies? Do you have a COO over all of the companies? Do you have a COO in each of them, or just an operational manager? Does it depend on the business? But more or less, I guess what I'm asking is how do you view operations, and who's in charge of that standard for each company?
Right now, I believe it would probably be me. I'm not great with some of those positional things. So business partner is my sister now. We bought my dad out, and she takes care of finance. She takes care of everything, what I call front office. She's the brains of the operation, running things. And then back here in the back is operations. So that's sales, project management, and then the operational piece of it. So operationally of the umbrella would be me. And then we're building key people within each business then to be key man in the business that then we work together to determine what that business model looks like, where we're going, what we're doing, how we're going to grow. And some businesses are multiple key men. So
yeah,
sometimes there's more than one person that you got to lean on for that piece of the puzzle. And they've got to have enough trust in me that as we're growing, change is uncomfortable. Change is hard. And as we've changed, we have some people that thrive in change and some people that struggle in change. And every day, once you get through the grinder of the business is that 5 to 10 people, I think. Once you get through the grinder, it does get a little bit easier because then the entrepreneur or the owner can start to peel themselves out and do what they're good at. And then they got people in place to do what they're good at. But getting through critical mass is super hard. And then you get on the other side and it does get a little bit easier. But until we got where we're at, we really didn't need operations people within each business sector because it was still small enough to work through the process just internally. So here recently, we've really had to start to delegate a lot of those things out and then build people that are singularly focused, where as early on entrepreneurs, you wear every single hat. It doesn't matter. Your HR, your accounting, your payables and receivables, your operations, you're doing the job, you're doing the labor, you're doing the excavation work, whatever it may be in your business. You're the widget builder, right? And so businesses get easier once people can find their groove. And growing big business isn't for everybody. Sometimes it's best suited for a solopreneur, somebody just to be a single operator. And sometimes those people make better money than people that grow big businesses. And they're more successful because they got more freedom and more time and opportunity. And other times you grow a bigger business and it helps take other people along with you to grow, and exponential opportunity happens.
Yeah, that's good. There's this thing that I keep coming back to that you're explaining, like it's this ebb and flow of like, let's just do the next thing, grow, and then we're going to solve operationally for this after. And It's like, I love that because I've been really hearing a lot of people tell me like the stage in business that I'm in, that Holy Hills in, is like, we just need velocity. We just need to go. Like the systems are there. We're not a 20, 30 person team yet. So it's like, don't overbake your operations.
Yeah.
Be good at what you're doing and then just go sell a crap ton of it.
Yeah. And you don't have to do everything. You just got to sell a ton of it.
Yeah. Right.
Sell more of what you're better at.
Yep.
And then you'll get better at the things you're not good at because you have to.
Yeah.
Have those bolt-on services.
Yeah.
So I agree 100%. You got to go, and now is the greatest opportunity to drop the hammer and go take off and bloom. Velocity is a great terminology. I use a lot of momentum.
Yep.
Momentum in motion, right? It's easier to keep momentum going. The second sale is easier than the first. The first sale is the hardest. And then you build trust, you build loyalty, you build awareness of what's going on. And the second sale becomes easier than the first. The third sale is easier than the second, and so on.
Yeah.
And so momentum in business in motion, as long as it stays in motion, it's going to ebb and flow. You're going to hit a peak, you're going to plateau, you're going to go up, hit a plateau. And it's just left foot, right foot, keep going.
Yeah. It's a day by day thing. I love it, man. This is super helpful. That's actually super helpful for me right now too, including this just cross training thing, the profit margin thing. That's like, I feel like you were just giving that to me. Hopefully somebody else benefits from it too. But the last thing I want to ask you, man, before I let you go, twofold question. One, what do you wish you did better in the past? And two, what are you looking forward to in the future?
You see those questions where, what would you take? Would you take the knowledge you have and go back to 20, or would you start over at ground zero? And those are really tough things to figure out. What do I wish? What was the question? What do I wish I had more of?
What do you wish you did better?
What do I wish I did better? I think early on, I wish I'd understood people better. I wish that I would have had an opportunity to have these type of conversations when I was 20, and not have to wait until 30s and 40s to really sharpen the axe. But I don't regret any of it, because all of those things were learning opportunities along the way to figure out why people are so critical, why people are so important. It's easy to say we over I and those type of things, and it's cliche, but when you build partnerships and teams, it really helps a business soar. In partnerships, collaboration partnerships, right? You're having conversations with other people. And so I just wish that I early on had a better network of opportunity, of being around other entrepreneurs that were going in the same direction. Even small business guys, big business guys, doesn't matter. Just a place to collaborate would have been helpful. And the second part was,
what are you excited about? What are you looking forward to the most?
Next 4 years, man. Greatest opportunity right now in front of anybody. I will say I am most excited about the next 4 years because two things. One, greatest transformation of wealth in the next 10 years. Old entrepreneurs, old business people getting out of business, they don't have a succession plan, and nothing is going to hold guys back that want to go kill something, drag it home. People are going to win in the next 10 years. In the next 4 years, it's going to be good for business. Business people are going to win big with conservatives in power. And in the business world, and this may not be popular against some of the people listening to this, and I apologize, this is just my opinion. When people are comfortable in business, it's not helping the CEO line their pockets. My people are going to win. My people are going to be successful. I've committed to that. And I've told them, you all are going to be super successful, and you're going to win in the next 4 years. We're going to give out. We're going to pay back. Everybody's going to grow. And so, what am I most excited for? I'm excited for the opportunity to double this company in the next 4 years. And so that's kind of my personal mandate.
Incredible, man. Well, I have every bit of faith that you'll do that, man. I appreciate it, man. I appreciate the time. I've got 3 pages of notes. A lot of short form videos that come from this, man. I'm grateful. You dropped some bangers in here, some things that I want to refer to for myself and also for our audience. Our
Bad
audience
advice is always free.
What's that?
Bad advice is always free.
You're not sending me an invoice then? Is that clear? We got that on recording?
No invoice.
Okay. Appreciate it, man. Well, dude, thank you, man. Thank you for your time. Thank you for just the wisdom and the openness, authenticity that you've been able to share, man. Congratulations on getting the race done. Congratulations on leading a family with the God at the head of the table. I think that the first problem with this country is that we don't have the home in order. And so congratulations on getting that part right, man. That's probably the biggest of your successes. But trickling into business, congratulations on all the success there. And I know that you guys have a big vision for the next 4 years. And just going to be praying over just the fruit of your vision, man. I know God wants to bless that because he already has. And he tells us that. And so just be praying over the favor of the deals, the transitions, the growth, the training, leadership, all of that, man. We'll be praying for that. And yeah, man, we'll see how many people want to listen to it. And then maybe we'll do a second one. I won't tell you if nobody listens to it.
That's okay. That's all right. No problem. Hey, I appreciate your time. You're doing big things, man. And I appreciate that you're swinging for the fence, and you got a lot of runway. And so as you launch, you're going to see the fruit of the labor blooming. And so it does take time. I know you're kind of in the grinder right now. Mm-hmm. It does get easier. It really does. And so for anybody that feels like, is it worth it? It will be, and it won't be all at the same time, but it's okay. Just keep going and it gets easier.
I love it, man. Persistence is the message. Thank you, brother. We'll be in touch. I'm going to get you some of this content afterwards. Make sure you guys, if you're on LinkedIn, go follow him on LinkedIn. He's posting consistently. You get to see a little bit more about what he does, the business, some of the ins and outs, the projects, the people that they work with. If you're interested, you can obviously, I'll link all of the websites of the businesses in the YouTube description, and then the audio podcast description. Anywhere else that we can find you or to follow you? Mainly LinkedIn, right?
LinkedIn is the best place. That's where I'm mostly business focused and want to just tell the story about who we are, what we're doing. So I'm on everything, but LinkedIn is the number one for business people.
Perfect. Well, that's the majority of our listeners anyway. So, all right. I appreciate you, man. Episode 40 is in the books.
Awesome. It's been fun. Thanks.
All right, brother. Peace.